Welcome to SF Commercial Property Conversations with Bruce Bean, where Bay Area investments meet expert insights. Get ready to unlock the strategies of commercial real estate success.
So today we have Faraz Cheema with us, and Faraz is in the famous Manhattan market in capital markets and selling basically, representing sellers and buyers in the office world of office world. So anyway, Faraz, it's great to have you. I just would love to hear kind of your origin story of how you got from Washington, D.C. to New York City in terms of commercial real estate.
Sure. So first thing, Bob only represents sellers. So we don't really do buyer rep here at BKREA. But yeah, to my origin story. So originally, where's a good place to start?
I think starting with your father is a good one.
Yeah, we had this chat right before this recording. So actually, that's probably a good place to start. So even though I'm a broker now, what maybe more and more people are realizing because of all the podcasts I've been on and whatnot. So I actually come from like a family office background. My dad was immigrated here to the US. Like he dropped out of med school his final year in Pakistan because he thought there was more opportunity in the US. He worked a bunch of odd jobs. And then as long as I could remember, because, there's only you can only remember so far back. So maybe when I was like 4 or 5, it was me, my younger brother, my younger sister. I'm the oldest of 5, but my other 2 siblings weren't born yet. My mom and dad, we were in a 1-bedroom apartment on Columbia Road in DC, which is like in Adams Morgan. My dad owned a dry cleaning business with a partner. And basically in 1994, if I remember that right, I'm pretty sure that's right, he decided to open up a check cashing business. His logic was, he had a friend that did it that's no longer his friend after seeing one of the practices he did, where he was charging people 5 to 10% on their checks. And he thought, this is a business where, they're taking advantage of, people that are going basically paycheck to paycheck. So he thought about doing 1% check cashing. So, we have like the most we'll ever charge is maybe 3% on a $10,000 check. But when you're bringing in a $10,000 check, you're not really paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
No. So, my dad originally, he would from maybe 6 a.m. to, because, he would have to get up, go to the dry cleaner across the street, probably opened up at 7, probably finished his day at 7:30, came home, ate dinner real quick, drove taxi till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he worked 18-hour days probably. No, but when he started the check cashing business, he didn't realize how successful his first location was going to be. So we grew that to 52 stores at its peak. So this is actually a good segue. I'll tell you a little bit, but the logical steps is, instead of renting, I want to own some of my own sites. So we would get into strip centers, we would get into pad sites. When the GFC happened, we were very cash heavy, so we bought limited service hotels in the DC area and Baltimore area for 40 on the dollar. Typically when people hear limited service hotels, you're thinking of Best Western, Days Inn, Holiday Inn Express. Typically we would buy anywhere either near BWI Airport. At the time we didn't have anything at Dulles as we do now. We had one deal in Hampton Roads in Virginia. But no, look, we invested into that, and then we got into shopping centers, 50 to 100,000 square feet. So let's segue from there. So that's how I think I got my exposure into real estate.
Right.
Originally, I wanted to be an architect, but I don't know if you realize, going to architecture school now, you have to have some civil background. And I could not do calculus for life. So being an architect was out. I was very interested in real estate, before I became a broker. I was doing a lot of the property management for my family office. And then I think like I got sick and tired of that because before that I was doing insurance. If you heard me on the Crexy podcast, like I wasn't a good student. I only had like maybe a 1.6 GPA in high school. I took 2 years off and then I went to community college. Then I went to American and then I ended up doing my real estate master's at Hopkins.
Oh, wow.
Funny how that goes from like, almost like borderline, like failing high school.
Right. Yeah. 1.6. Yeah.
Yeah. No, like when, like, yeah. So, like I was thinking to myself, like originally when I got licensed, I needed somewhere to hang my license. Cause my logic was, I'm just going to get a license because if there's any small deal, like under 5 million, I'll get a commission out of it. Maybe make some extra money. I didn't think I'd turn into like a full-fledged broker. It's interesting how that went. And there's a funny story I didn't mention in some of the other podcasts, but like I think this might be a first for this one. So, I just told you all the stores he has. He also has maybe about like 30 some cell phone stores, about a dozen laundromats. And, I thought that'd be like, okay, let's say he owns like half of those, like he's leasing half of those spaces.
Right.
You would think that's like, and he signs 5 to 10 year leases, and retail typically pays the highest rent, like in any market, unless it's like trophy class A, maybe that's the case where like office rent may trump retail, but typically retail is like the highest rent. And I thought I would be his tenant rep. And right. he would say, Faraz, you can help me buy my buildings and sell my buildings, but when it comes to leasing, John Weiss is my broker because he helped me when nobody else did.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So I at first, like when you're in the business, you're like, what the hell? Like, why am I not the broker? But then you realize in this business, like when you truly provide value as a broker, like there is a such thing as like broker loyalty. And no, right. like John is now an asset manager. It's funny, like, like we're probably gonna have to figure this out at some point, like where to bring it in. But like that deal I was telling you that we're LP, like he's the asset manager on that deal.
Oh,
but like to I guess we can bring it in now, because we were talking prior, like the family office, like what's been active. And since I've been like in New York for like a year, I've been kind of out of it. My dad just turned 70. We just bought, like in the last 18 months, we bought like a $7 million strip center. It was like 83% occupied. We put our businesses in, like all 3 of our businesses, the laundromat, the check cashing store, the cell phone store. We have a 40% LP stake in a grocery anchored shopping center for like 18 million. I never thought I'd see the day. So before I was recording that Crexy podcast, like if anybody listened to it, I would mention like why my dad would never do office. That has changed. I find out my dad turned 70 like May 1st. Like we're having a conversation like a few days prior because like, he's now 70 and you need to have this conversation. I'm looking at the personal financial statement. And I'm seeing this, we have a 23% stake in a 481,000 square foot office building. And I'm like, when did this happen? So this is what happens when you go to New York for a year. It's in Tyson's Corner. Like, look, if you're a capital markets broker, and you put 2 and 2 together, which deal it is. We're partners with this GP in this deal. B+ office, great deal. Like look, if you buy it at 34 million at 481,000 square feet on 7 acres, that's like $73 a foot. Underutilized, like it's it's like 2-story parking garage. You can easily optimize the parking garage and sell off. For rest of the development. So, look, we had offers at like 42, and I'm just like, no, I get it. Like that's an asset you hold. But yeah, I guess we can talk about like my brokerage career and everything, because in DC I was still very active in the family office. Like I didn't have a mentor like originally. I started from scratch. Again, I thought this was just to get some extra money on the side. Like my first year might have been like 3 deals. My second year might have been like 5. And, like I remember on my fourth year, that's when I did like 20. Then it becomes like 30. And then like I'm averaging like 40 to 60 deals before I left. I was 7.5 years in the industry before I went to New York. And like most of my transactions, I would say like 30 to 40% was office, 30 to 40% was industrial, and 20 to 30% was retail. The only reason I have that retail component, either when I had a client that sold a building, I would 1031 them into a triple net asset.
Right.
Or if we had a building we solely owned and we didn't have any partners, like the most we'd have on a deal is maybe 3 partners max. That's it. We've been buying mostly now, if we could, all cash. Otherwise, it might be only, like I told you, that deal with the LP we're 40% in. There's only 3 people on that deal. The office building, it's only 4 of us max.
Yeah.
And there's no debt on any of these. These are all like cash deals.
Right. Wow.
But I mean, like that's how the only way you're going to get them penciled out right now. But
yeah, right. You don't own it 6% or 7 or 8 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but no. So it's interesting how I went to pretty much an office industrial broker to like now strictly focus Manhattan office, capital markets, strictly sales.
Yeah.
Which, if you asked me in the beginning of my career, would I ever be selling office buildings in Manhattan? I'd be like, there's no way in hell.
No, I'm not going there. Yeah, but here you are.
Here I am.
And give us the little rundown that you did earlier about the price of office space going from basically 1,000 to 500.
Yeah, so basically we track every building below 60th Street, above 20,000 square feet. The reason we cut out anything below 20,000, the comps get really skewed for 2 reasons. One is the high price per square foot, either for redevelopment or for owner use sales. I'll give you a prime example. We're literally pitching a deal right now. Comp says it should be around like $480 a foot. No, I'm sorry, $440 a foot. But as a redevelopment, it could go as high as anywhere from $540 to $600 a foot.
Right.
But that's development value, not as is office value.
Right. The dirt's worth more than the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So first year, $1,041 a foot. Second year, $906. Third year, $800. This is where I screwed up in the Crexy podcast, but I did have some redeeming fact, because if you listen further down in that podcast, I did mention it's $492, not $592. I literally listened to that podcast twice. I'm like, all right, there's some redeeming factor there. I did mention it's $492 because, like, if you do the math, $492 from $1,041 a foot, that's a 52.7% decline.
Yeah,
I mean, we've seen some uptick. Last quarter, considering when this comes out, so for people for reference, last quarter, what I'm talking about is Q1 of 2025. There's been an uptick of 517 a foot. Typically from 2020 to 2023, there's anywhere from 16 to 25 transactions. It was anywhere from 2.2 to 4.1 million square feet. But last year, it was 9.6 million square feet traded, 40 transactions. The last 18 of them happened in the last 4 months of the year.
So what's happening in terms of repossessions or banks coming back and kind of taking control in New York City?
I mean, look, we were literally reviewing a deal right now where here's an interesting, it's not just lenders, it's also people who are defaulting on ground lease payments.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how it is in San Francisco, but there's a lot of things in Manhattan that are still done by ground lease. Right. So there's people who own the ground lease. I mean, look, you heard the story about the Chrysler building going up, but like the reason the Chrysler building wasn't a lender, it was the school that like Cooper Union, who owned the ground lease, that the owner like defaulted on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So now Cooper Union ended up taking the dirt back.
Well, not just the dirt; they got the whole building back.
Oh, yeah. The building went with it. Right. Yeah. Of
Yeah.
course.
So now it's on market right now. But the tricky part you have is with ground lease situations, because like that school is not going to give up the ground lease. Like it's more like owners are more lucrative to the deal. Like if you're willing to sell it fee simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like because like my understanding is like I have to get the more detail, which is probably gonna be a great post, but like my understanding is like the ground rent used to be 2 million and it jumped up to like 30.
Yeah. Ground leases can be very low depending on when they went into place. I mean, they're long-term, 30-year, 90 years, whatever the term is.
Well, and not only that, like what's in the clauses for renewals and whatnot.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So it's not just lenders, it's also people as like being the receiver side of these defaulted ground lease.
Wow. Yeah. No, I know in San Francisco in the Bay Area, there's some very low deals going on. I mean, there was a property nearby here in San Mateo that sold recently for 75 million and then just this year it resold for basically 25 million. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of lowball offers going out on properties. If you've got cash, you can buy something pretty cheap these days.
Well, exactly. The only thing is you need cash because the banks are, especially in office, like banks still don't want to touch office.
No, no, yeah. Well, and the developers, can't get funding for office space. I assume that's true in Manhattan and New York City.
You'd be surprised. There's still lenders out there, but like, look, you're talking about like the LTVs is going much lower now because they need more capital injection in these deals. But I mean, look, like when you're looking at the deals and like how, like if you can hold on to them. I mean, look, I just told you 52.7% decline.
Yeah, right, right.
This is not the time to sell.
No, no, no. You got to hold. You got to put all the entitlements together and then just hold and see if you can make it work later on. And I assume construction prices in New York City have not gone down any.
Well, it's crazy. So now you have like a lot of the large developers like doing sensitivity models because nobody knows where tariffs going to land. They might have some idea, but they're doing their sensitivity matrix on how much tariffs could affect construction costs on the materials.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. No,
But but at the end of the day, like look, but at the same time too, like look, land value is going. I mean, Bob will say like this is probably the best time, even probably better than like SNL crisis.
yeah. Well, that's interesting. I mean, so tariffs are even if, well, they're obviously affecting construction costs. I just talked to an industrial broker out of LA yesterday, and the tariffs are just having a huge effect on the industrial world there because of the Newport market or the Newport the the port there basically takes in 40% of the US trade. So once you
Yeah,
stop,
I could have sworn I heard something about like the imports from China has like dramatically declined.
right, right. So there's just not as much traffic. There's not as much demand for industrial space. During the pandemic, there was a huge demand because everybody was building everything and they needed space to put all that remodel items into the warehouse before they went into the homes. But now that's all gone. And then,
No, that reminds me of a deal I did in Richmond, Virginia. I represented an impact glass fabricator. At the time, he was looking for like 70 to 100,000 square feet. At that time, probably $4.5 to $5.5 million for a building like that. Then COVID hit. He says, you know what? Like maybe this was the best time not to buy because COVID took in place. Well, construction didn't slow down. We couldn't find anything industrial. Richmond's not really known as like an industrial market for that type of space. Like you'll see a lot more of like the 250,000, 500,000 square foot sites now, but not like the small owner use buildings. Like
Right. Yeah.
And I remember he was about to build one spec for like 8.5 million.
Okay.
That's like 90. Yeah. So we ended up buying. I remember we managed to find a building in Newport News, Virginia. It was owned by a Japanese printing company.
Oh,
It
wow.
was 2 buildings on one lot, so it needed like 6 months to go through the subdivide process.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
But he was 50 minutes away from Richmond, and he got that site. I can't remember off top. I know it was less than $5 million, like high $4 million range.
Yeah.
But he only got like 70,000 square feet, and he's like close to an hour out from Richmond.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, look, like everybody saw it during industrial. I mean, when I was primarily doing industrial in Montgomery County, rents were, originally $10-11 a foot. If you're lucky, $9 a foot. I know on the West Coast you do it like per month, not by per year.
Right. Yeah, it depends on the city, but yeah, San Francisco is actually annual, but
really,
outside of San Francisco, it goes monthly. Yeah.
yeah. So look, like rents have like more than doubled since COVID, like for industrial rents.
And now that's all sort of up in the air because of the tariff situation.
Yeah.
So crazy world. Well, all right. So just out of fun and curiosity, what's your favorite food?
Lamb chops.
Lamb chops. All right. And who in the world, alive or perhaps not so alive, would you love to sit with and eat your lamb chops?
So it was funny because again, we were having this conversation prior, and I think it took me 3 or 4 minutes because like I never had this question asked. And then I finally came up, like it'd be Sam Zell. I would really like to hear his input like on the office to resi stuff. Look, I don't know what it's like in the other markets, but I can tell you in New York, like, people don't think it's prevalent. Some publications say it's 6.5, some other publications say it's 7 million square feet that was taken offline. We track every single conversion deal, not just office or resi, like hotel to something, storage, or like parking a lot. So I can tell you, like in Manhattan, we're now at 22.6 million. But if you just strictly do office to resi conversion, it's 20.9 million. And this is everything since 2020. Like we're not counting anything prior to that. And then let me pull up. Actually, like we have our comp sheet right here. Give me one sec.
Well, that's interesting because I think New York City has been much more aggressive, or the numbers work better. I'm not quite sure why, but they have certainly converted a lot more buildings out there than we have in the West Coast.
No, 100%. And if you think about, I'm pulling it up right now. So out of the 64 buildings, like 52 of them are office buildings. But here's the thing though, like, so a lot of these conversions are not like buildings that were bought. I would say half of them, actually, I want to tell you the exact number because I do have it here. All right. So out of the 52 deals, I can't give you the exact, I have it here. So out of the 64 deals, 37 of them sold within 2020 to now. But that's taking into account like every type of conversion. Yeah, I remember like I don't know where my other sheet is, but when you look at office, it was pretty much 50-50 of pre-owned versus, like we like to call them legacy deals, versus buildings that traded in the marketplace, like during the COVID area.
Right.
So no, I mean, like, look, so you have a few things going for you. One is, I don't know how it is in San Francisco. I can tell you this would not work in Washington, D.C., because in New York, you do have the ability, as long as there's no height restrictions with Zeldas or like a certain historic district or whatever, you're allowed to like shave a part of a building. Like if you need the light and air well, stack it on top. If you have underutilized, you can put it on top. In Washington, D.C. proper, you cannot do that because there is a height restriction.
Wow.
So if you ever go down to D.C., there's a misconception. People think you can't surpass the Washington Monument. No, that's not the benchmark. The benchmark is the state capitol. Really? Capitol Hill. No, sorry, national. Yeah. So
yeah, right.
Yeah. So basically, nothing can be bigger than the Capitol building.
Oh, wow. So that's
that's
not very
why.
tall, right?
No, I mean, you're probably talking, I don't know what it is exactly on top of my head, but you're probably
5 or
talking.
6 stories, or maybe, I
No,
don't know.
no, no, bigger than that. You're talking
Oh,
probably
yeah.
like 12 to 14.
Oh, okay. All right.
But still not that
No,
large. So
no.
think
Compared
about it.
to Manhattan, that's nothing. Yeah.
No, that's nothing in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And think about it. If and these typical office buildings are typically like 50 feet floor plates, if not bigger. And so for something like that, you're gonna have to create a light and air well. Well, what are you gonna
Right.
do with the remaining? Because like in DC, you're set by height restrictions, setbacks, and whatnot. Well, what are you gonna do with the square footage you carved out?
Right. Right.
That's basically a huge loss factor. So
Right.
it really
Right.
makes sense, like if you're buying it for like close to dirt value.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta, and then you put $1 jillion into it. So,
Yeah.
and then is there a market to sell or lease the space? So anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
complex.
so I think that would be a very interesting conversation to have with Sam Zell.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, okay, I agree. Sam would be very interesting to talk to about that. Well,
Yeah.
with that, let's leave that for the moment. I'm going to come back. We should talk again probably in 3 to 6 months and see what the market's doing given the tariffs, and hopefully things will kind of become a little more stable and see where we go from
Hopefully
there.
rates will come down too.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be great. So when rates come down and tariffs come down, we'll talk again and see what the market looks like.
That sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, great to have you.
That's a wrap on today's journey through the SF commercial real estate scene. Ready to share your story? Visit sfcommercialconversations.com/guest. Your insights could lead the next conversation.